Welcome to the Global Home Business Pro Team Training Call with today's special guest, Russ DeVan. Today, Russ has a message called How to Give Up Selling and Recruiting and Trying to Get Others to, and create more sales and enrollment in your organization than you ever thought possible. Russ believes that network marketing is really not about selling and recruiting, as we're so often taught in this industry, but more about promoting and enrolling. What we do naturally when we find something amazing or special and desire to share it with the people around us. But the key is we can't have that underlying sales agenda that causes resistance. When this business is approached that way, resistance vanishes and growth throughout your entire organization will be natural and explosive. And now, here with today's Global Home Business Pro Team Training Call is Russ DeVan.
Thank you for being here. My name is Russ DeVan, and I am thrilled to be here with you. And we're going to talk about something today that when I started first unconcealing it many, many years ago, it made a huge, huge difference in the development and the building and the productivity of my organization. And what I'm talking about specifically, well, let me start like this. How many of you have ever run into a situation where you wanted to put someone in the business, but they resisted the business because they thought they weren't good at selling, or because they didn't have any sales experience, or maybe they hate selling? And these are all variations of the same thing. And pretty much the same thing goes for recruiting. Well, when I was first introduced to network marketing and this type of business many, many years ago, we're talking over 30 years ago, I was a professional salesperson. So my interpretation of how the business would be done was that I knew I could sell, and I thought if I could sell and train other people to sell, then that was how I would go about doing the business. Unfortunately, I don't believe that that is the correct formula or equation, and I found pretty quickly that many people I talked to didn't feel the same way about sales that I did, and in fact, even some people that did and thought they were quite good at selling couldn't do it very well, let alone teach someone else how to do it. So, like all we've talked about so far, and I said this before when we talked about prospecting, I'm going to share some ideas with you today, and they're just meant to be put out there as possibilities. So my ideas are kind of like an article of clothing. Try it on, see if it fits. If it doesn't fit, then discard it. If you're already very good at selling and you're very good at teaching sales, then maybe you don't need this. But I'd like to at least offer it as a possibility, because I've found that more people, and what Success by Design, my company, is all about, is creating a way where more people can succeed, regardless of their education, regardless of their background. All they really need is persistence, to be themselves, and stay in the game and tell the truth. And if you can do that and practice some of the principles I'm going to share with you, your numbers will grow geometrically. So to get back to what I was saying, let's talk about sales for a second before I talk about a possible another way to go about getting sales. You see, I think for decades, sales technique has worked quite well. It's been honed and developed by masters. When I first had my first career job, one of the things they did was put me through IBM's professional selling skills course. And I learned all about the technique and the methodology of sales, which had to do with, first, asking questions, both the open kind that encouraged people for a response and the closed kind that limited their answer to a yes or no. And the purpose of asking questions was to uncover certain issues or things that they might have, and the questions were specific to whatever product or service you were offering. So then, once you had uncovered these needs with the questions, you would give the features, advantages, and benefits of your particular product. And then The proper procedure was to close the sale. Now, closing technique is a category all by itself. Some people think that that's the most difficult piece of the selling process. And two things are taught side by side. One is how to close the sale, and then believe me, there's a million different ways, a million different kinds of questions. But the key to closing the sale is asking a closing question and then not talking, then shutting up until the other person speaks. When the other person speaks, one of two things is going to happen. Either they're going to agree and buy, or they're going to offer an objection. Now, overcoming objections is another whole category of specialty in sales. First, you need to identify what kind of objection it is. And then, according to the type of objection, overcome it. And you may have to overcome objection after objection, an average of 6 or 7 times before you actually close the sale. But each time you overcome an objection, you go and close the sale again. Now, if this is sounding kind of complicated, it is. And people who master it are in the very, very few numbers of people, especially those who can master and say it and do it naturally. Because today's consumer is somewhat more savvy than consumers were 10 or 20 or 30 or 40 years ago. Today, people can feel themselves being sold. They can feel the sales process, and resistance comes automatically. Interesting, that word, resistance. My question some 20 years ago, when I was really investigating what didn't work for people about network marketing distribution, was I've been selling all my life. And if sales is so effective, if the sales process is so good, why are there objections? When you close the sale, it should be a lay-down deal where people just say, okay. Why do objections continue? And so I looked at that. I looked at it very, very hard. And the more I looked at it, the more I came to the conclusion. Now, again, this doesn't mean this is true. This is just my conclusion and my opinion. But I came to the conclusion that sales and sales technique for today's consumer is somewhat bankrupt, or a little softer, maybe just outdated. In other words, people can feel themselves being sold because the selling process is, I think you'd agree, somewhat manipulative. You're manipulating people to a specific end. Now, that doesn't mean it's bad, so you don't have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It doesn't mean that selling is wrong or selling is bad, so I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that it's tough to do very well. It's tough to do naturally, and most people can't do it, let alone teach it. But what I observed about it the most was that selling, and this is the conclusion that I came to, selling, I believe, is a kind of force. It's a way to force people to a specific end, which is a sale. Because as we all know, the way a sale is measured, the way you get or know a sale has been had, is when you get payment. When somebody actually says, okay, and writes the check or uses their credit card or buys the product. That's the only way that selling is measured. Sales, however, and here's the good news in all this, sales take place every day to the tune of billions of dollars across this planet, and they take place without the selling process. They take place without somebody applying selling methodology. So how does that happen? I mean, isn't that at least interesting? Before I speak about that, I want to tell you a little bit more about the theory part. See, I believe that selling is a force. And natural law, the law by which everything works, is that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if sales is the action of force, what is the natural reaction to force? The reaction to force is resistance, isn't it? Of course. In the presence of force, you have resistance. That's how force is defined. As a matter of fact, if we take typhoons or hurricanes or tornadoes, The force of them is measured by the force of which they strike against something. If it's just a force floating around without anything in its way, I say it's not really a force because there's nothing to measure its power against. We measure its power by how a force is resisted by something. Now, let me put it this way. Resistance. Resistance isn't an action. It's a reaction. So is resistance out there in the universe floating around by itself somewhere? The answer is no. Resistance only exists in the presence of a force. So doesn't it make sense, according to natural law, that if you remove force, resistance disappears? Now, in the selling process, the force is the selling process. The force is closing the sale. The resistance is objections, of which you have to overcome, again, with force, very artistically. However, I've never figured out how a salesperson is supposed to overcome resistance or an objection without making someone wrong. Think about that for a second. How much do people like to be wrong? Because in a selling process, one or the other is wrong. An old sales adage is either you're making the sale or they are. But if they are, you lose the sale because their resistance is greater than your force. Well, how about we get rid of both of them? So, again, when I started studying this, I started thinking about these things and had a theory, and I came to these conclusions. But then I started sales in general, and I learned that there was a tremendous shift a long time ago in how sales are done. We all know the internet. We all know that things have changed dramatically, even from television and television advertising and marketing. But if we go back 20 or 30 years ago, and the infomercial or the mini infomercial was born, everything from Ginsu knives to record collections from the 60s to all the mini commercials that you see of television. And how is it that something can be spoken in 1 minute or 2 minutes that has people reactively buy something, not object? If they want to object, they can just channel. But it has them writing down a phone number. It has them getting out their credit card, ordering something that 2 minutes ago they didn't never even thought about or knew that they needed. Now, there's no one in the room. There's no one making them feel bad. There's no one saying or doing anything. They're just putting out a message that causes buying to happen, which, of course, sales. Well, all right. So I say that is something different from selling. It still creates sales, but I call that phenomenon promoting. Now, here's the difference. Selling is a specific methodology by which you go through a process to close the sale, overcome objections, close the sale again, but the only way that selling is measured is by a sale. Promoting, however, I define this way. Promoting is the communication of value while providing an authentic choice. Now think about that. In a selling process, do people really have a choice? Because the salesperson's taught that no isn't acceptable. So no is definitely a choice. They might choose no, but most sales trainers will tell you that's when the selling really starts. That's when you turn up the heat when somebody says no, because the reason they no is because they have an objection, and you need to find out yada, yada, yada. But in promoting, it's just the communication of value, and people buy. Now, you're going to be familiar with the cliche that I'm going to mention right now, because I'm sure you've heard it a million times. What's rarely tied to it, however, is that it's not really selling. It is, in fact, something that people do quite naturally, this promoting process that I'm talking about. But as it applies to things like this, have you ever do a meeting or even in a training where somebody will say, oh, this product is so easy, you just share it, or this opportunity, you just share it, and people will get it and they will do it. Well, people say, okay, but then most people go out and share things like it's selling in sheep's clothing, and they go back to selling, they're calling it something different. But the example that's often used is, it's like when you go to see a great movie and you tell people about it, okay, and then they go to see the movie. Well, now we're on to something, but what is the difference? Because when you tell somebody about a great movie, you don't call them the next day to find out if they actually. You don't march them over to the box office and make them buy a ticket. You don't follow up when you do that. If you tell them about a great restaurant, same thing, or a great place that you've been on vacation, same thing. When we tell someone about a movie that we absolutely love, generally, we're talking to someone we think will appreciate that because we know something about them. We know what their interests are, and we can't wait to have them go see what we just saw because we think that they'll really love it. But we're not attached in any way to whether they do that or not. I think maybe in some small way at the bottom of our hearts, we're hoping that if they go to that movie and they really, really love it, they'll remember we told them about it. But that's probably the extent of it. But when we tell someone about a great movie, about a great product, about something that we're not financially attached to, we communicate it sometimes incredibly powerfully. I mean, we really are adamant how badly they need to see this movie, how badly they need to go to this restaurant, what an incredibly beautiful experience this particular vacation spot is. But then we let it go. We let it go. And you know what? Those industries count very highly on people's ability to communicate the value of that experience. That's how they grow. They grow by word of mouth advertising. So promoting is this, but there's some more nuances to it. Promoting isn't just talking or explaining. Have you ever noticed how sometimes when somebody is fresh or new in a business opportunity, they've used a product, they've gotten a phenomenal result, they can't wait to tell people about this product. They don't have any training. They don't have any product knowledge. All they have is raw passion and enthusiasm for this product. Or maybe the same with a business opportunity. They've gone to a meeting where they've met people who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and sometimes tens and tens of thousands of dollars a month. And they can't believe the income. So they're so excited. And they take that raw excitement and they go out and they tell people about it. Now, generally, when people do that, they're very successful at getting people excited about buying a product. It's when they get trained to sell and recruit, it's when they get a whole bunch of product knowledge that people don't need to have that things don't work out so well. It's when they get trained that, in fact, they become less effective at creating sales or enrollment. So what I have to say is this. The most wonderful news of all about promoting versus selling is that whereas with selling, people say, I'm no good at sales. I can't do that. I hate sales. I hate being sold. Well, I understand that. I really, really do. But the wonderful thing about promoting is people are already good at it. They do it all the time. They don't sell their children on what they should do things. They create the value, maybe around the morality of it, or why it's a smart choice, or why they'd be so proud of them that they did things this way. That's just another form of promoting. When you are really committed to somebody's benefit or welfare, more than they are whether they buy something or not, or whether they do something or not, people can sense that. They can feel that. That's the difference, is that you're not attached to something resulting in a sale. And when you're not attached to something resulting in a sale, guess what? Sales happen more easily, more readily, and the most wonderful thing is it's a natural process. There's no resistance to it. None. Why would there be? Because you don't care whether it's a sale, and you don't even have to say that you don't care whether it's a sale. How many times people asked you about something, and they've said, well, you look great, or you lose weight, and then you tell them why, and they say, I want some. Well, you didn't sell that to them. It wasn't your idea. It was you that created that. The way you look, maybe your courage of conviction and explaining the product. You don't have to launch into a sales presentation about ingredients or try to figure out how to close them and overcome whatever objections. It was their idea. And now we're hitting on something very important. One of the differences between promoting and selling is that when promoting results in a sale, it was always the customer's idea, not the person promoting. Not the person promoting. The person promoting is communicating value and putting it out powerfully and passionately. And people respond to that. You know why? Because they don't think you're getting anything from it except a contribution to them. I believe it's very, very important for us to make a difference for people that enjoy this kind of a business. I'm not saying everybody's out there to make a difference for people, but wouldn't you love it if you told something, a product they love, and maybe they love it a little bit more just because you were the one that told them, because they got these great results. That's the difference. And as I said, the best thing about it is that people already do this naturally. But when you train someone how to sell something, you alter their behavior because they begin to think, well, by asking the right kind of question, well, what do I need to say? Well, what if I don't know what all the ingredients are? What if I don't know what all the ingredients do? Well, what if I don't know how to overcome that objection? Well, what do you say when somebody says this? You don't go through any of that when you don't care about the sale. When you don't care whether you're contributing or not, or whether you get something from your contribution or not, the way I should say it, when you don't care about that and you're not attached to it, you are your authentic self. You're there to contribute, and people respond to that. They believe you. That instills credibility because you're not trying to get something from them. You see, the listening that people have today for selling and salespeople is that you want something from them. You want something from me, and that's what you really care about. What you care about is my money. What you care about is getting something from me. You don't care about me. And I'm not saying they're accurate. I'm not saying they're right. But you can understand where they get that because the selling process can be very manipulative depending on how it's done. So instead of learning how to sell and learning sales technique and trying to teach it to other people, what I'm telling you is you're already powerful. What you need to do is experience something and then, in fact, tell other people about your experience, not care whether it results in a sale or not. Also, here's another key component. How do we feel about people that complain in our society? I mean, I'm speaking mostly of the United States, but I assume this is true of other cultures across the world. Generally, we shun people who complain. That's why I think I'm going to get a little button that says complaint department. I'm going to pin it on my shirt so people will come up to me and complain. When people complain, which they only do generally around people they trust, around people they don't trust or don't feel good about, they don't complain. Why? Because in society, complaining is weakness. Complaining is whining. And I'm here to say complaints are a gift. But you've got to learn not to pounce on a complaint as an opportunity for a sale. A complaint is on top of something that motivates people to action. And what it's on top of, it's concealing something else that's more important. And what it's concealing is a concern. People will complain that their clothes don't fit. What they're concerned about is that they're fat and they look bad. And people won't like them for that reason. Or what they're concerned about is their health because they can't move the way they used to because they're embarrassed. But when they complain, they'll complain like, boy, I need to lose weight. Boy, I need to go on a diet. Boy, clothes don't fit. I get That's what they do. And generally, if we're selling a product for weight management, we're all over that. We're on that as an opportunity for a sale. But instead, what you might do, if you're just promoting and you're not that interested in a sale, is get interested in the concern. Well, why does it bother you? Well, what are you doing about it? What's your plan to change that? If you ask those kind of questions, they start, I don't know. I don't have one. What do you think? And as soon as it comes to what do you think, what you can say, well, I've found that's wonderful for that. That might be good. Here's what it is. They asked you, what should I do? That's an opportunity to promote. And you can take it as an opportunity to sell, but if you start selling, you're going to get resistance. So you put something out there as a possibility. By the way, here's the neat thing about a possibility. There's no resistance to a possibility because possibility always has this. They can either believe the possibility or not. They can either choose to do whatever the possibility is because it's a possibility. It's not, you're not limiting the choice for them. The more choice you can give people, the more effective you will be at creating sales. As a matter of fact, I'd like to change something. I'd like to change the way people hold what we do as direct sales. You hear that all the time. And I actually think that that term was coined so network marketing would have a better image. So they wouldn't have to say multi-level or network marketing because somehow sales sounds more professional, it sounds more credible, because after all, some of the biggest industries in the world are direct sales industries. There's the insurance industry, direct sales. There's real estate, direct sales. Network marketing? I don't know. But here's my point. About direct sales and about what you're doing in selling, as I said before, there's choice. So instead of thinking you're as a salesperson or someone who's going to create salespersons, how about thinking of yourself as a choice merchant? What you're out to do is offer people choices. Choices about looking younger or not. Look, the eternal market is looking better, living longer. So, better. Who doesn't want to feel better? If somebody needs to lose weight, if they need to lose weight, then what are their choices around that? They can stay this way or they can do something else. And what our job is to point those choices out. Imagine what a gift it is to give someone a choice they didn't know they had before. That's what we do. We give people choices. We give them choices between broke or changing their lives financially. We give them choices between being overweight and out of shape and looking older than their years, or another whole possibility of living life with vitality. And so that's, in essence, what the concept behind promoting versus selling is. Now, I want to spend a minute talking a little bit about this other thing. So important in our business. Look, if you can handle two things in building a network marketing business, you've really got it. And this is in terms of your actions. Of course, you've got to solve who you talk to, and that's what we spent 2 whole calls on. But if you can handle about how to generate sales and how people come into your business to build their own business and add to yours, which is usually referred to business as recruiting. Those are the 2 pieces that people fear the most, shun the most, are the less apt to do, that they're not really good at doing. And if you have solutions or other opportunities or possibilities for them to generate sales and put people in the business, they're probably going to be interested in them. So the recruiting piece. Now, recruiting obviously was used just gratuitously in network marketing. And you recruit so many people in the business, and then they this. Well, I don't really have an issue with the word itself, but it conjures up things for me. Like, people are recruited into serving their country. And the people that are recruited today, they have a choice about it because there's no draft in our country anymore. So recruiting has become a different kind of thing. If you look at the recruiting ad television for the armed services, I mean, it looks like a pretty great life. The picture is painted like, if you're good enough, accepted by us, this is the kind of life you will have, and this is what people will think about you. Whereas in our business, in the network marketing type of business you're recruiting for, most of the time it looks like one of two things. Neither are very appealing. The first one is begging, actually promising the world to someone, if they'll just try this, you'll do anything. The second one is dragging, kicking, and screaming, where they really don't want it. Okay, you talked me into it. All right, well, all right, maybe, but if this doesn't work out. So have any of you experienced something like that? I mean, neither one of those are very pleasant. So now you have an opportunity. It's really exciting, and it's an opportunity for people to sell and recruit. How exciting is it? So can you understand why people have such resistance to this type of a business? So let me tell you how, and this is only my definition. You won't find this in Webster's. So let me tell you how I define recruiting. Recruiting is getting somebody to do something they don't want to do, but you manage to find a way to get them to do it anyway. Okay? And you know what? That is the long road to success and the hard road. So there's another possibility, and I call that possibility enrollment. Now, look, I made these words up, not the words themselves. Obviously, promoting existed way before Russ DeVan, so did enrollment. But I made up the distinctions for what these words mean. Promoting, as you will remember, means the communication of value while offering. Enrollment's very similar. Enrollment is the communication of a vision, a value, a direction, or possibility in such a way the choice is irresistible. Now, you know what? I turn to the internet or even to television and again to advertising. You know, every year around the Christmas holiday, at least in, again, I'm going to say the United States, but I bet it's true in other places. From Thanksgiving on up until 3 or 4 weeks before Christmas, people kind of let things slide a little bit. They eat more, they drink more than they used to do, they put on a couple pounds. As a matter of fact, I saw several years ago that said the average American gains 8 pounds every year between Thanksgiving and the end of the year. First. So some of that has to do with less exercise, more parties, sitting down and watching television and eating chips and popcorn or whatever, eggnog, whatever it happens to be. But you're getting the picture. Now, just yourself as one of those people or someone you know, if you prefer, and suddenly, whatever the programming is on television, it has a break, and on comes an advertisement for a fitness center. And this fitness center has beautiful people in bathing suits with rippling abs, the kind of body you just dream about, saying you can look like this by the time it's bathing suit season if you join us with our special now before the end of the year of January, and we're going to roll back prices all the way to the 1850s, and you'll only pay $9.95 to join, and you pay $29.95 a month, but it doesn't start for the first rep. So there's this unbelievable offer on television, okay? And you're sitting on the couch watching TV, thinking about yourself, and all of a sudden you say, yep, that's me. I'm going to do that right now. I'm writing that down as a New Year's resolution, okay? That's a very competitive. I'm enrolled. Well, guess what? There's nobody in the room telling you how you need to lose weight. There's nobody making fun of you. You're all yourself. You can change the channel if you want. But you proactively enroll in something. Every day, people enroll in things. They enroll in personal development courses. They enroll in businesses. They enroll in education. They enroll in fitness centers, in naturopathic programs, you name it. People are always joining. They're joining things. But it's always their idea to join. And somebody created that idea from something. They put something in their head, a vision, a value, a direction, a possibility, and they put it across in such a way that there's definitely a choice, but people simply cannot resist the choice. Okay, so how does that apply to what we're doing? Well, first you have to know what we're doing. First you have to know what you're doing. So here's the question. What are you building? What are you building? What are you creating using Jeunesse? What are you building? What's the company you're building? I know you're building Jeunesse, but what are you building for you? And how does it include other people? What does it look like? Why would somebody want to be part of it? Why would somebody want to join you and build and create something for themselves? Why would that be irresistible? What if it was what recruiting usually looks like in this type of business? When I said it was begging or dragging and screaming, it looks like we're trying to get somebody to do something, as I said before, definition of recruiting. But more than that, it's almost like we're putting upon somebody. We're embarrassed about it, okay? Like we're embarrassed that we're asking them to join us. Not sure how they'll react. Well, my question to you would be, what if they were honored? What if you put something across to someone in such a powerful way, such a compelling way, that you had such a clear vision of what you were creating and what you were building? They were like, and you picked me? You want me to be part of this? Is this a trick question? Has my ship just come in? Are you kidding me? What if people responded like that? Well, I say it has a lot to do with what you're saying and how you're going about doing it. Because they're two completely different ways of being with people, and one creates an irresistible choice and the other creates resistance. So again, promoting is the communication of value while offering a choice. And it is a great possibility. I'll even go on a limb and say it is a much more interesting and powerful possibility than sales. Recruiting is getting somebody to do something, talking somebody into something, getting someone to do something they're not sure they want to, but you win. You get them to do it anyway. Successful at recruiting. Whereas enrollment is painting a picture so vividly, so powerfully of what you're creating, people actually hear it like it's an honor to be a part of it. And just like promoting, you're already good at it. You've done it a million times. When you have a cause that you believe in, that you're passionate about, you speak to certain people in such a way that they align themselves with a cause. They'll say, I'm in. When you tell them what you're doing and the contribution that it is to people, they want to be a part of it, and they'll join. When you say something to somebody and they know it's their choice to make a difference for themselves, financially or otherwise, and it's their idea and it's their choice, they'll do it. And maybe not 100% of the time, but 99.9, I'm here to tell you. And a lot of it has to do with just the way you do it. And the wonderful thing is, it isn't something you have to learn. This isn't a technique. It's something you already know how to do. If you can speak, heck, if you can point, you can do it. Okay? So, now why is all this important and how does it relate to building our business? We've gotten two important distinctions, but I want to take it one step further. Another great misnomer, I believe, about this type of a business is actually how good you are at creating sales or how good you are at enrolling. because it really doesn't matter how good you are. In our type of a business, if you're really good at things, but other people can't do what you do, then you're an army of one. The whole idea behind the beauty of network marketing distribution is creating something that's a simple effort that thousands of people could do, and you get paid on it. But the interesting thing is you have to keep it simple. So the three actions in our business that I offer as a possibility aren't selling, recruiting, and consuming. They're promoting, enrolling, and consuming. But I say each one has a value you can assign. I got to tell you, when people find out how good they are at promoting, they want to do it all the time. They'll do it all the time. So they can win the Golden Retail Award if they want to, because they're promoting product all over the place. And when people get good at enrollment, they want to enroll the world. I'm here to tell you, you don't need to do that. You don't need to sell $5,000 worth of product every month. You don't need to recruit or enroll 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, 50 people. You can over a period of a couple of years if you want. But if you just enrolled a few, if you just used your effort to promote a little bit each month, you can move. If you ask somebody, once they know the distinction between promoting and selling, how much product they think they promote now, how much product sales they'll be able to do the next month, they'll come up with numbers like, well, I probably can do, I don't know, $500 a week or so. That's $2,000 a month. Okay? Or if you ask how many people they could enroll in their business this month, they'll say, well, just off the top of my head, about 10. Well, the problem is if they enroll 10 people, they're not going to be able to support them all. Not all at once, over a period of time, maybe. But if they enroll 5 or 2 or 3, or even an average of a month, how about that? How many of you plan to be in the business a year from now? Let me share a secret with you. Do you know if you enroll one person in the business a month or a year, that's easy math even for me, you will have enrolled 12 people over the course of 1 year. But if every person you enrolls one person a month for that year, for that same 12-month period of time, and every person that they enrolls one person a month for the remainder of that year, and one person that they enrolls one person a month for the remainder of that year. Do you know how many people are in your organization at the end of the year? Answer, 4,096. Now, what if 4,096 people in your business were personally responsible for enrolling and promoting $300 worth of product a month? Okay? If I'm not mistaken, that's about $120,000 worth of volume. But the point is, some people will do much more than that, and you can even do much less than that. If you enroll 5 people in your business the first month, good, you're getting started. But you don't have to do that every single month, and neither does anybody else. If people are busy trying to keep up with how hard you work and how impressed you are with yourself at selling and recruiting, they're going to quit. What's essential is you develop an effort that people can do even if they have another job, even if they're already working. Now, it might not make them rich in 30 days, but remember, this isn't a get-rich-quick thing. It's a get-rich-slow thing. And by slow, I don't know, do you have 1 or 2 or 3 years to make a high 6-figure year income? I think most people would if they had a design, if they knew how to plan that. So again, here was the intended result of today's training. It was to give you a new possibility for what selling or sales can look like for type of a business. I say there's a better way, and I call it promoting. The difference being, one is sales technique, and you either become masterful at it and masterful at teaching it, or this type of a business really won't work. You might be wonderful in direct sales, but in this type of a business, I say it's really not a good productive formula. Or you can do what you're already good, already powerful at, which is learn how to promote effectively. And the key parts of promoting are listening for complaints and concerns, or actually inquiring about them, or just listening in general. And when the opportunity presents itself, promote powerfully. Communicate value and give people a choice about what they want to do. Enrollment, remember all the prospecting things that we talked about a few weeks ago? Well, when you're enrolling somebody into business because they've been a good prospect, the idea is to know precisely what it is you're building and how it includes them. And then enrollment is like an invitation. It's not something your life depends on. It's an invitation to come and join you, but more importantly, build and create something for themselves that other people will want to belong to. That is so much more powerful. And then there's the duplicable effort, of course, and I just touched on that, but I'll say it again. Establish a value for promoting, enrolling, and consuming. I don't care if the value is $300, $800, $1,000, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever you're sure you can bring to the table. And then you produce that each month with those three actions. And you teach other people to have a value that they produce, and then they do the same thing with the people that they enroll. And that's how you build large, geometrically progressing volume. Now, I'm going to leave you with a story. And the story is actually about enrollment, but it features one of the greatest baseball icons. Baseball is huge in the United States at this time of year. And almost anybody that knows the word baseball, even today, he's been gone for 50 years, but even today, they know the name Babe Ruth. And Babe Ruth, who was called the Sultan of Slot, was famous for hitting home runs, just crushing the ball. Even way back in the 20s and 30s, he could still hit the ball out of the park. And there's a story about him about how he went to see a little sick boy in a New York hospital one day, and a little boy asked him if he'd hit him a home. And Babe Ruth promised that he would. And Babe Ruth went out on the field that day, and as the legend goes, he pointed where he was going to hit the ball. He was already 2 strikes down. That's the story. Everybody knows anything about Babe Ruth, that he also not only hit more home runs than anybody at the time, but he also struck out more than anybody. And his expression was, well, you can't hit him if you don't swing at him. So he had the strikeout record as well as the home run record, but we're not talking about that now. He had 2 strikes, and he hit the ball. But before he hit the ball, he pointed to where he was going to hit it. He pointed. And the pitcher threw the ball, and boom, out of the park. Now, here's the part of the story that seems to have been lost in the urban legend. Babe Ruth pointed where he was going to hit the ball all the time. He did it to intimidate the pitcher. I mean, imagine you're pitching against the greatest hitter that's ever lived. Okay, you know that. You're the pitcher, you know that. And all you can think about is where to put the ball. You can't hit it if you're going to try to strike him out anyway. So you're the pitcher, and you see Babe Ruth point to where he's going to hit it. Nobody ever said he hit it there. He hit a home run. So the pitcher throws the ball to where he thinks Babe Ruth can't hit it, and guess what? Boom, gone. So I say that that's a story of enrollment. And the enroller was Babe Ruth. And he enrolled the pitcher against the pitcher's will, pretty much. But he enrolled the pitcher that he was going to hit the ball, no matter where he put it. And you know what? He did it a lot. He did it a lot. So I'm asking you today, where are you hitting the ball? What are you pointing to? Can you enroll other people in that? Can you communicate the vision that you have, the value of what it is, the direction you're going, and the possibility that exists for other people? If you can, you're a lead pipe cinch, deadlock to be effective at this business. Thank you for spending so much time with me. and I hope I get an opportunity to speak with you again. God bless you. I'll talk to you another time. Russ DeVan.